Okay, good afternoon. So today we are with Miguel Gonzalez. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Today we're gonna have an interview with Mike. Can I call you Mike?
Yeah, you can call me Mike.
We're gonna have an interview with Mike. He's gonna help us with the topic that we already saw about translation. We're gonna be asking a few questions before so we can understand what is the kind of work that Mike does. Can you explain the audience what is that you do on your job?
Well, yeah, I'm a teacher. I'm an English teacher in high school, UDEM, Universidad de Monterrey. I'm also making different programs to other high school, related to the topics of English.
Okay, so how old are your students? The ones that are not in high school?
The ones that are not in, all the students are in
Are
high
in
school.
high school. Okay. Have you been working in the teaching area for a lot of years?
Yeah, I think 9 years.
Have you always been an English teacher?
From the beginning, yeah, I started with English class.
Okay. Well, we're gonna be talking a little bit about translation theories. Can you explain me first what does translation stands for you?
Okay, translation is I don't know, I really don't know, but translation is changing the language of the things that you receive. Like if I have I don't know, a script here, I need to change it, I need to translate it to a different language. So to do that, I need to know the words, I need to know the context of the things that I'm reading, and I also need to know the culture of the language that I'm going to translate the things. It's not as easier just to change the words. That's why I always tell my students, you need to use something different, not just Google Translator or not just the dictionary. It's not enough. Okay.
It's that simple. Okay, there were different theories that worry about the topic of translation. I don't know if you're familiar with Octavio Paz.
Not in the term, but yeah.
Okay, he used to believe that translation was possible, but it depended on the translator to mix certain abilities or certain ingredients to make a good translation. He believed that you needed to pay attention to the essence of the original text in order to translate that essence to the language you're translated to. We have another theory that is called it was called Bloomfield. He believed that translation was not possible, only scientific texts were able to be translated because the terms were very technical. And we have theories that are in the middle. They believe that you could translate, but under certain conditions. So, what's your opinion? Do you think it's easy to translate? Is it possible?
Well, first, I think that it's important to know that there's no 100% translation.
Okay.
And I believe that, for example, in literature or maybe movies or in the ways that we explain things, like my opinion, it's different to the technical words that we see in a script or something, in a scientific research. Why? Because we want to say something, and sometimes there are not enough words to reflect the things that we say in our language. It's like I mean, I suppose that Octavio Paz was having troubles with that because he, uh, I don't know, he wants to make all the people to know something or to understand something in a way, in a specific way, and he choose different words to give that to the people. So what happened?
Like the feeling.
Yeah, the feeling. So what happened when this person tries to say the same things or to make feel the same feelings to the people in a different language? Well, that's the problem. So I don't think there's a 100% translation, perfect translation, but we can, in a practical way, we can make the things work, even though if it is not like 100%. Yeah.
Okay. Going back into the translation theories, you mentioned before that you need to take into account the factor about culture. Theorists believe that in order to be a professional translator, you needed to be careful about the culture you're dealing with or you're trying to translate to. What can you say about culture as a factor in translation?
We're gonna say, okay, I mean, there are different words or phrases that we cannot use in different languages. Also, there are words that are not part of other languages. It's like I was telling you before. We have these words that help us to describe something that we want or to make someone feel something that we want. And there are no those words in other languages, or there are no perfect way. It's like a lot of people that reads a lot. I mean, in Spanish and in English, for example, they say it's different. They say it's the description of the character is different. The way that they are talking is different. The feeling about some specific area in the book is different. So, I mean, the culture in this in all this is it's a difficult area to translate because obviously each country, each culture um, obtain the information in a different way.
Okay. And I mentioned before about a professional translator. We know that there are professional translators and the rest of us that we can translate to certain languages, but that doesn't mean we're making a good translation. What do you think a professional translator needs in order to become one or to be a good translator?
Knowledge. I mean, uh, patience, a lot of patience. I believe that translation is more about checking if everything is correct, like matching all the components in a context related to the culture that you are exposing. I mean, if you are translating, I don't know, a movie, maybe, or it's not as easier as a book, or it's not as easier as scientific research. Why? Because we have this.
The
Um,
feelings that you were talking
yeah, also the feelings, and also some. How can I say it? Like the feelings of the people that trying to say something. So it's hard to understand that because it doesn't matter the word; it's what they are trying to say. Sometimes these people just use the word like
about.
cheating. Yeah. So that is the problem with translation, and I think a professional translator, need to know that in a context, like reading between the lines, understanding, not just like moving the words.
Now we're gonna move to the teaching area. Have you used translation in your classroom?
Yes, not a lot because a lot of my students are in a different path right now. They are trying to understand grammar and they are learning more vocabulary. So translation is not
That's necessary.
not that necessary, and it's a tool that is I think it's more advanced. And maybe sometimes translating in the beginning part of the teaching make them to divide the language, and I want them to think in the new language that they are learning. So yeah, we worked in translation. Like I ask sometimes them that change an article most related to a scientific article or an opinion article in Spanish, like a news from the country. Also, I asked them one time. I asked them to change all the one episode of How I Met Your Mother to English. Well, it's not translation as that, but I wanted to make everything in English, like what do you understand and write it, and then explain in Spanish what were the things that they were saying, like in a big picture. So,
Kind of.
yeah.
And what do you think about using translation, sorry, as a teaching tool? Is it something good? Is it something bad?
I think it's necessary, but as I told you before, in advanced classes, because sometimes the learner doesn't know how to differentiate between Spanish and English, and when he wants to talk or she wants to talk in front of the class, it's translated in his or her head. So I don't want that as a teacher. I want them to think
To
in
be
the language.
natural.
Yeah. So it's good. I mean, it's very important to know how to translate. Everyone needs to know how to translate and practice that. But sometimes I think the first steps of learning a language is more important to just try to think in that language, like erasing the other languages from your head.
Okay. And what kind of good or bad experiences have you had with translation in your classroom?
A lot of issues, like in papers, some of the papers are, well, all the words are wrong, or they change some of the meanings. Uh, we have in Spanish a lot of meanings, a lot of words that explain the same thing. So they translate one of the words thinking that means the other thing, and they change everything. Like it's incredible to know, well, to see the students trying to make the best but without using the correct tools. I mean, they just use Google Translator, and obviously, if you have Banco, you're going to see the word bank, and that's not the only meaning of
Meaning that it
that
has.
word. So sometimes they made that mistakes, and also, I think the what I was telling you before about the patience that they need to have to translate. Sometimes they just translate at the first, they don't read what they translate, and they don't understand that maybe because of that, the text doesn't have any sense. So they just like,
They
okay,
don't double check what they
yeah.
do.
So that's really important in translation.
Okay. And as a last question, what can you say to other teachers about using translation as a teaching tool?
What can I say to our teachers? Well, I'm not a teacher that usually use translation as a class method, but I think it's important uh, to practice this type of translation. Why? Because our students need to do that in the day-to-day activities in our countries, in whatever they are doing in high school or university, they need to translate. So it's important that we, as teachers of English teachers, provide them with the tools to translate correctly. So I think there's no need to translate all days and in all our classes, but it's important to give them the tools.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. That
You're
will be
welcome.
it. I don't know if you have any other comments.
No, not really. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening to us. I hope everything was clear for you and have a good day.
Okay, now that we have seen this video about the interview and all the information that we had about translation along the model teachings, we can conclude that translation is a very important tool to take into account in our classes as teachers because we can help our students to make a differentiation between uh, a translation without meaning and a translation that actually translate the essence of the source and target language, sorry. And we both agree, Mike and me, that culture is a very important factor to take into account in the translation because if you take that out of the equation you will have a meaningless translation. You wouldn't have something that helps communicate between languages. One thing that I do not agree with Mike is that translation is something that needs to be teach or taught in advanced classes. I think that translation is a teaching tool that you can use from the beginning, regardless of the age or level of the students. But you just need to be careful to notice when it's actually necessary to use translation. When when the new language that you're learning it's being a wall between communication. I think that moment is when you actually need to use translation. uh, and we need to be careful with the people that we use translation to. So, as a summary, we can say that culture is very important. The age of the students that you're aiming is very important, and to actually notice when translation is necessary. I found this topic really interesting because I didn't think that translation was something that you needed to pay attention to, and now I know that translation it's a hard task. It's not something that it's given by itself, and we need to teach that to our class students. So thank you very much for listening to me. I hope everything was clear and have a good day. Bye.